Yo, what's up YouTube fam? Pat here, back with another Epic 7 how to play video, and in this one we are talking about not Kratos, but the actual God of War in Epic 7, Apocalypse Ravi. As with all of my how to play videos, I'm going to go super in depth and cover almost everything you could possibly want to know about the character, including their stats, their skills, some possible endgame equipment builds, as well as some suggestions and pointers if you intend to use the character in World Arena. With the introduction out of the way, let's talk about Apocalypse Ravi's stats. Apocalypse Ravi is a dark warrior of the Cancer zodiac symbol, which means she shares a stat line with Alencia and designer Lilibet. Taking a closer look at her stats, she has 975 attack, 7054 health, 106 speed, 652 defense, 15% critical hit chance. Just like with the Luna video, what you see on your screen is misleading. You get 30% from her S2 passive War God's Might, and we'll talk about that skill a little bit more in the skill section in just a moment. 150% critical hit damage, 5% dual attack chance, and no effectiveness or effect resistance. This translates to one of the highest HP totals in the game and very good defense, but only average speed and very lackluster to honestly pretty poor attack, but I don't think she really needs it, and we'll talk again more about why in the skill section in just a moment. As a bit of fun trivia before moving on, Apocalypse Ravi in the English dub of Epic 7 is voiced by Frida Wolf, who you may remember from the Seaside Bologna video. In the Japanese dub of Epic 7, however, Apocalypse Ravi is voiced by award-winning actress Aoi Yuki, who is in so many roles, I literally could make a video on just all of them. So here's some of the highlights. She is Madoka from Madoka Magica, Froppy from My Hero Academia, Mami from Rent a Girlfriend, Futaba Sakura from Persona 5, Lumine from Genshin Impact, and Okita Soji from the Fate franchise. Apocalypse Ravi's S1 is Spectral Axe. She acquires 20 fighting spirit upon use, and it has a 1x attack multiplier as well as a 12% maximum HP multiplier. 30% of the damage that this move deals is also returned to Apocalypse Ravi as HP, so it essentially has built-in lifesteal. Also, after her most recent round of buffs, it now deals up to 10% injuries to the target with this move. What that means is that based on how much damage you deal, you can lower the enemy's maximum HP by up to 10%, which means that she has very, very good applications against characters such as Blue Crowd, because you could essentially lower the maximum HP total, which makes their moves such as Siegfried a lot less effective. So normally we always meme on injuries, how it's not super good, and it's only really found success on a character like Bellion. But Apocalypse Ravi is another character where injury is actually pretty good because the character has an enormous HP pool, and thanks to her S2 passive War God's Might, it is very difficult to kill her, so games will go long where she is a part of them. So I really do like injury on this character and do think it is a welcome change for her. The other thing I do have to talk about, though, before we move on to the S2 passive War God's Might is, what is this multiplier on this move? Mort has a 0.7x attack multiplier with 8% HP scaling. Alencia has a 0.5x attack multiplier with 10% max HP scaling. Alencia and Apocalypse Ravi literally have the exact same stats. They are literally the same class. So I don't understand how Apocalypse Ravi has not only the highest attack multiplier, but also the highest health scaling multiplier, and hers has lifesteal on top of it. So yeah, this move blows every other similar move out of the water in this game. It is absolutely ridiculous, I think, for an S1. So now let's talk about that S2 passive, War God's Might. It increases Apocalypse Ravi's critical hit chance by 30%. When she is attacked, it will reduce her fighting spirit by 10 to increase her combat readiness by 15%, as well as heal her for 6 to 8% of her maximum health, depending on Molagora. That HP that you restore is absolutely no joke. Based on how you build the character, it usually is going to equate to thousands of HP restored over the course of a game. And when you consider how tanky this character already is innately, it makes it very difficult to kill her. And thanks to the combat readiness boost that you get with it with the 15% extra, you can build her pretty slow and she will still take quite a number of turns. The last thing to talk about on this move is that you start the battle with 50 fighting spirit, which means that you will get at least a decent chunk of HP restored before you actually have to attempt to refill it through attacks and things like that. The S3 of Apocalypse Ravi is Deliverance, Soul Exchange. You acquire 2 souls upon use, and it has a 4 to 5 turn cooldown depending on Molagora. You acquire 30 Fighting Spirit when you use it. This move has a 1.3x attack multiplier and a 20% max health multiplier. When this move defeats an enemy, you will revive a random ally with 30% of their maximum health and give them a skill nullifier once, as well as plus 100% combat readiness, meaning that they most likely will take the next turn. Additionally, this move has a damage increase every time an ally or enemy is defeated, stacking up to 3 times. If you remember when I did the patch preview analysis from September 2nd earlier in the year, I said that if this move had a 10% scaling multiplier, an additional plus 10% damage whenever an ally died, it would be pretty good and in line with other moves from similar characters. I expected the high end for this damage increase to be 12%. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for some reason, Smilegate and Super Creative gave Apocalypse Ravi a 25% extra damage increase on this move, which means that it does hilariously high amounts of damage now when it is fully stacked, and I have seen it completely one-shot full health characters in this game, so I really do think they kind of overbuffed this move. At least it does have that really sick animation though, am I right? So now let's talk about the Soul Burn. The Soul Burn costs 20 souls and increases the S1's multiplier from 1x to 2x and changes the maximum health scaling from 12% to 20%, and it's all at the cost of the move not being able to dual attack. This move does a crazy amount of damage, and again, I have seen this move, just like with our S3, one-shot characters from full health entirely. And yes, because it's still your S1, you do get health restored on this and things such as that. As for Molagora Priority, I would definitely max S2 War God's Might first. Originally, I did not max this move, but then after doing some calculations, I realized I'm losing out on thousands of HP in terms of healing over the course of a game. So yeah, if you want your Apocalypse Ravi to live, you definitely want to max War God's Might. And then after that, you can choose either the S1 Spectral Axe or the S3 Deliverance Soul Exchange. But honestly, just like with all damage dealers, you really, I think, want this character at plus 15 at the end of the day. Apocalypse Ravi is supposed to be the God of War in Epic 7 lore, and that feels about right given the current state of this character. If you were looking for a powerful single target damage dealer, Ravi certainly feels like she is the god of PvP in this game. At times, she feels nearly unkillable, and her damage is just through the roof. When you factor in the combat readiness push from War God's Might and something like Azure Comet, this character sometimes just feels like she's schmoovin'. And this is all before we talk about the change to her S3 Deliverance. Deliverance just gets absolutely absurdly strong after 3 characters have died, whether that's your characters or your opponents or some combination in between. The fact that this move hits hard enough to one-shot a fair amount of characters and is also a revive for her allies just feels absolutely backbreaking. If you do not have a game plan versus this character from the get-go, and she takes you to the late game, you're dead. I'm pretty sure you're just dead. That said, Apocalypse Ravi isn't entirely without her faults, though. She doesn't really provide your team with any other real utility besides her revive, and obviously the injury on her S1. She doesn't really give you any debuffs, no buffs to your team. She has no AoE damage at all. And on top of that, she's not exactly the easiest to gear either. So let's talk about that in the character builds section now. The first build to talk about is a Speedy Bruiser build for Apocalypse Ravi. This is the one that most people are playing right now. In the past, it is the second build that we'll talk about after this, which is a counter-based build. But right now, most people are playing Apocalypse Ravi as a Speedy Bruiser. For the primary sets, we want to be on Speed Penetration, and if you want to use Revenge, you are more than welcome to use that in place of Speed. But there is nothing, and I repeat, there is nothing that can really replace Penetration on this character. I have played this character in the couple of days that I've had her without penetration, and then I've played her with penetration, and there is a stark difference. The character feels really nuts on penetration set. So it is for that reason that I highly recommend that you are on penetration set for this character. The damage just feels like at times it feels like it's almost doubled for some reason when you're on penetration set. So definitely get on farming Katie's if you have not already done so. There is a hunt buff that is coming up in a couple of days as of recording this video. So if you do have Apocalypse Ravi, get to farming, get that penetration set in there. So looking at the desired stats, we want 2100 attack, 1200 or higher defense, 20k health. A lot of the best Apocalypse Ravis that I have seen have almost all of the stat lines that you see here with over 23,000 health. That is really difficult to hit on this character. So for a baseline, I went with 20,000 health. You can go higher if you have the gear. In fact, I highly recommend once you hit all the other breakpoints on this character that you invest everything into health, as much health as you can get, because it makes her harder to kill and it makes her hit harder as well. The speed, you want to be at 200 or faster. I've seen the fastest ones be in the low 220s. I feel like most of them are between 205 and 210. I put it at 200 to be safe. As always, use whatever gear works for you. If you can only get 190 but you still have insane stats everywhere else, then by all means you can go for it. 100% critical hit chance, 250 critical hit damage. Crit damage is basically the same as health. Once you've hit the attack, defense, and speed and crit hit chance thresholds, bump it up there. The best Apocalypse Ravis that I have seen have around 280. It is very difficult to get that all on a penetration set. So for that reason, I lowered the bar and kept it at a nice 250 critical hit damage. But again, if your gear allows for it, definitely pump this stat up there. Taking a look at the right side, we're on a crit damage necklace, HP percentage ring, and the boots are on speed. For the artifact, I am using Crimson Seed because I do believe it is the best option for the character from the limited time that I've played with and against her, because having Crimson Seed, not only does the artifact give a decent chunk of health, but it does fix one of the problems that Apocalypse Ravi has, which is, you know, she is susceptible to being controlled, but if you're on Crimson Seed, it's very difficult to stun her, sleep her, silence her, and prevent her from doing her job. So that's why I really like Crimson Seed on this character. Also, everyone has access to Crimson Seed. You can farm it from Hall of Trials. Looking at the other possible artifacts, I've seen people play Azure Comet. Mine is only able to be plus 15, so I really didn't feel like I really wanted to experiment too much on it, but I know that there are a number of streamers and content creators out there that play Azure Comet, because if you have that 215, 220 speed Apocalypse Ravi, you can just zip around the battlefield and take a ton of turns as people just start to die in Apocalypse Ravi's wake. So yeah, this is definitely a viable option. Draco Plate is for those that want a tankier, harder hitting Apocalypse Ravi and you're not really super worried about any potential debuffs. I was using Draco Plate for the first day or two when I got this character and it was fine, but I eventually switched over to Crimson Seed after I started getting, you know, bonk locked by Maid Chloe's left and right. So yeah, again, Draco Plate is fine. It just depends on your draft style and what characters you decide to bring with your Apocalypse Ravi. And then the last artifact, which I do not really recommend, but if for some reason you have nothing else, Timeless Anchor is a good substitute until you can get Crimson Seed. It is really important to note that there is a difference between Crimson Seed and Timeless Anchor. They both cleanse debuffs, yes, but Crimson Seed only procs 1 per turn cycle, so obviously you won't be able to cleanse as many debuffs as Timeless Anchor, but again, does have those better stats than Anchor. But Anchor procs at the end of an attack, which is relevant. That was actually pointed out to me by a guildmate. So, for example, if a Adventurer Raj uses his S2 that defense breaks, he can defense break your Apocalypse Ravi. If you're on Crimson Seed, that will immediately be removed before the follow-up attack. But if you're on Timeless Anchor, you won't really remove the buff until after you've taken the full dual attack damage. So keep that in mind if you are intending to go for Timeless Anchor. Taking a look at the per piece average, you want 11% attack or higher per piece, 9% crit chance or higher, and then 13% or more HP per stat. Definitely emphasizing again the or more. Most of the stat pieces I have on my Ravi have something like 20 to 22% HP and then some flat health on top of that to help kind of pad those stats just ever so slightly. So the second build to talk about is a counter bruiser build. Obviously, we're going to be on counter set with a penetration set as the offset for the same reasons we talked about with the first build. For the desired stats, I went with 2,000 to attack, although obviously you could still do that 2,100 from the first build. I just tried to, again, make it easier for people to actually gear the character, because I do think this character is very difficult to gear for many players. She has 1,200 or higher defense. On counter, you could go up to something like 1,350 if you are able to do so with your gear. I highly recommend that you are as tanky as you can get on a counter Ravi without really sacrificing the HP, because obviously you could go really high on defense, but then you just don't have the damage because you don't have the HP for the HP scaling attacks. For the health, we want to be 22k or higher. I've seen some streamers in the low 2100s with the counter build, and that is a-okay if that is all you can get, but I would probably try and shoot for that 23k more on this build than on the actual speed build. For the speed, I decided to settle in at 170. I have seen other popular streamers in the low 160s, so if that's all you can get, then by all means go for it. I've seen some who have like a 185, 190 speed. Apocalypse Ravi on counter set, so if you want to go for it, that is fine. For the critical hit chance, I have 100% here as well, although if you decide to play Azure Comet, because I for some reason see a lot of people play Azure Comet on the counter build more so than the speed build as of late, you can go only 85% or like 83% or whatever have you, because obviously Azure Comet gives 15% critical hit chance, so that is up to you. Again, I am just giving you some options, some flexibility in your build. So whatever you can get to work, whatever you can make work for you, by all means go for it. Critical hit damage, I have 250% here as well. Usually on the counter build, you don't see too many people, I feel like, go much higher than this one. Again, it's more focused on the bulk and surviving, because you're obviously a much slower character with this build compared to the actual speed build. Taking a look at the right side gear, nothing again has changed. It's still just crit damage necklace, HP percentage ring, and speed boots. Although I guess you could make the case, if you have like really insane gear, I guess you could try an HP percentage neck, but I probably would not recommend it. You just have to have like really wonky and perfect gear to make that work out. For the artifact, I'm still assuming Crimson Seed because I've had the most success with it. But like I said, I see a lot of streamers on Azure Comet. So if you have Azure Comet, by all means, go for it. And obviously Draco Plate and Timeless Anchor are still other decent options on the character. It's not like she's changed too much. She's just a bit slower and a bit bulkier, but has the ability to counter now. Taking a look at the per piece average, we only need 9% attack because, again, I made it a little bit easier so you could pump up that health at 19% health now per piece. To still have the same 9% critical hit chance, and then you fill in the rest of the stats with either defense percentage, flat defense, crit damage, or flat HP. So we have to talk about bad matchups first, or at least the bad matchup first, before we could talk about good matchups and teammate suggestions, because everything about Apocalypse Ravi revolves around one specific character, one little girl, and that girl is Little Queen Charlotte. This is absolutely the worst matchup for the character, no questions asked. As long as she has an attack buff or she's on penetration set or both, your Apocalypse Ravi's dead. So if you choose Apocalypse Ravi in the earlier parts of the draft, just know Little Queen Charlotte is almost assuredly coming if your opponent has her unlocked. So yeah, really bad matchup, and I really think you have to either deal with her or ban her every single time you see her, and that will be quite frequently when you draft this character. Other characters of note here that might potentially be bad matchups, Spectre Tenebria comes to mind because Apocalypse Ravi is a single target DPS, cannot really interact with Spectre at all. You basically have to kill the rest of their team before you can even get close to her. And then there's Landy. Traditionally, Apocalypse Ravi has a pretty decent matchup, I feel like, against Landy for the most part, at least if you're on the speed/revenge build. But sometimes Guiding Light is just going to be Guiding Light, and she's just going to sit in stealth the whole game, and if you don't have another AoE character on your team to get her out of stealth, you're dead. I'm pretty sure there's nothing you're really going to be able to do about it. And then the last thing that is a potentially bad matchup is Cleave. Your opponent might take a Little Queen Charlotte and you might be planning to play around the LQC or banning it, and then they might just immediately pivot into something like Closer Charles plus a Straze and just cleave your entire team right off the board. And as good as Apocalypse Ravi is, sometimes she can't really make the 1v4 work, especially if everyone on the enemy team is incredibly aggressive or incredibly controlling. For teammate suggestions, if you want mitigation, Crimson Armin and Crow are the two best ones because they're not dark, which means they don't get murdered by Little Queen Charlotte. Crimson Armin is the best option for those that want to have the most mitigation for Apocalypse Ravi. Basically, if you want Apocalypse Ravi to live the longest, Crimson Armin is the best choice. But Crow is also good in his own right because he gives you the defense buffs, and his S3 Siegfried can kill a character, which lets him be kind of like a secondary carry, or he can at least severely weaken it and set up for Apocalypse Ravi's S3 Deliverance, which is really powerful. Other teammates to consider are the reviving characters, such as Ruel of Light and Maid Chloe. Ravi is very difficult to kill, does a lot of damage, and can revive teammates. That's what makes her so good. Having a second or even a third revive on your team just feels absolutely oppressive. I have played Ravi with Ruel and Maid on my team, and it feels nearly impossible to lose. It feels absolutely broken. Other characters include Closer Charles, because he gives you an attack buff and he's really good at allowing you to pivot into cleave. You can pick Apocalypse Ravi early on in the draft, and if they just don't pick a team that is very good against cleave, you can take Closer Charles 4th and something like Luna or Straze 5th, possibly ban their mitigation, and just sweep the entire team. And if for some reason they stabilize, you still have your S3 Deliverance to revive a fallen damage dealer and basically just finish them off at that point. So yeah, really, really good for pivoting into cleave options. And then the last teammate is Little Queen Charlotte, and the only real reason why Little Queen Charlotte is a good teammate is because if you have Little Queen Charlotte, they can't have Little Queen Charlotte. And Apocalypse Ravi doesn't really have that many bad matchups as we just talked about. She's really, really, really strong. And if you take the number one bad matchup away, they basically need like Spectre or Landy or both. In which case, maybe if you have Bellion, then I guess maybe you possibly win. I don't know. Yeah, just really strong character. Works well with a lot of ML5s. I know we're talking about a lot of ML5s in this section, but this is definitely, I feel like, a veteran's character. She just synergizes way too well with some of the more high-end characters in Epic 7. For good matchups, it feels almost like everything for the most part. Ravi just feels really good versus most of the standard compositions that see play right now. She just is really hard to kill, does a lot of damage, and having injury and revive in her kit makes her amazing at going really long and really deep into games. I know I said she's not super amazing versus cleave, and that's kind of true, but having a revive in your kit and being as hard to kill as this character is, you might be able to just let the S3 rip, revive a character, and just turn the tide very easily. Aside from Little Queen Charlotte, and like I said, a full tank comp on either Spectre or Landy, not much really gives this character too much trouble. She just feels insane in so many matchups, especially if you have the proper characters to support her. It's no wonder this character is being first picked a lot as of the recording of this video and is being banned a lot. She doesn't really feel like she has too many glaringly obvious flaws. So in every Moonlight 5-star how to play video, I usually include a section called Is It Worth It to Pull? Because, well, not everyone's made of money. Not everyone has a lot of resources. So you're probably on the fence about whether or not should you get Apocalypse Ravi, right? So let's talk about this. You, I think, should pick up Apocalypse Ravi as a character if you are an experienced player in Epic 7. If you are a newer or intermediate player, I don't really feel like Apocalypse Ravi does a whole lot for you. And if you're also somebody who just doesn't really like PvP at all, then this character is, I think, an easy skip for you because she's only really useful in like Guild Wars and World Arena. And other than that, she doesn't really do anything for you for PvE content at all. Like nothing's in Abyss. She's not particularly amazing in regular arena either. I think there are comparable or better options for arena offense. Obviously, if you put her on arena defense, she's just going to get dunked by people who have Little Queen Charlotte. So yeah, again, if you're somebody who has a lot of stuff, an experienced player, then I definitely recommend you pick her up because she is absolutely a meta DPS right now. Will she be meta in 6 months to 12 months? We don't know. I just don't know what's coming out, obviously. So she might not scale amazingly well into the future, but for right now, if you're an experienced player who needs a powerful damage dealer and is trying to climb World Arena, you should get Apocalypse Ravi. Again, if you're a newer or intermediate player, though, or just somebody who really doesn't like PvP, definitely skip it. For the new players, you really want to be picking up the really powerful knights, such as like Fallen Cecilia and things like that, before you try to get a character like Apocalypse Ravi. Obviously, there are Soul Weavers as well, like Maid Chloe, Ruel of Light, that are also very important, I feel like, and will add more to your account as a new player. So there's also other things like Desert Jewel Bazaar and Mediator Koeric, which are very good if you lack a cleanser on your account. So again, Apocalypse Ravi is going to be worth it for you if you are somebody who already has a very well-rounded box with a pretty deep hero pool that is looking for a powerful damage dealer in the current World Arena format. And that's going to be my thoughts and everything else on this how to play video talking about Apocalypse Ravi. If I missed anything, please let me know down in the comments below. I probably am going to be releasing this video roughly the same exact time that they are releasing the collab details, so you could expect a collab analysis and maybe possibly unit breakdowns following this video shortly. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to see any more of these how to play videos, there should be a playlist on your screen now with all the other how to play videos that I've done for Epic 7. As always, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I will catch you all in the next one. Later.